I have to say something first before. That's it. I am ready now to yield back the balance of my time after I move the previous question on this resolution.
Back. Without objection, the previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Mr.
The resolution
Speaker,
is adopted.
I request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on adoption of House Resolution 587 will be followed by a 5-minute vote on the motion to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 665. This is a 15-minute vote.
The House has wrapped up debate on the rule for a bill which would remove restrictions from a piece of land in Accomack County, Virginia. The rule would allow for an hour of general debate and 2 amendments to be considered. This is the previous question vote, and the rule vote is next. 3 votes here. We expect this, the previous question vote, and then the rule, and finally a vote on a bill they debated early, one that establishes a pilot program for the expedited sale of federal property. So both bills today dealing with federal property. Off the floor of the House today, the talk is about the budget, as Budget Committee Chairman Paul Ryan released the fiscal year 2013 budget. You can read that on our website at cspan.org and see the morning news conference as well. Just before the release of that, Senate Budget Committee Chairman Kent Conrad said the spending limits agreed to in last summer's Budget Control Act is intended to serve as the budget for fiscal year 2013. He said that House Republicans seem to walk away, his words, from a deal agreed to last summer and will ultimately threaten a government shutdown. He spoke to reporters this morning for about 20 minutes.
Everybody ready? Okay, why don't we begin? I'm here to discuss the budget deeming resolution that I will file in the Senate later today. This resolution sets the spending limits for fiscal year 2013 at the levels agreed to by the Congress and the President last year and set out in last summer's Budget Control Act. It allows the appropriations committees to proceed with their work in drafting bills for next year. And it ensures the Senate will have the tools to enforce those spending limits that we agreed to on a bipartisan basis. I want to emphasize that we do have a budget. It is the law of the land. It was passed last year. It is in place. Those who say we do not have a budget have either failed to pay attention to what they voted on, or they are deliberately trying to mislead the public. The Budget Control Act was passed by the House of Representatives. It was passed by the United States Senate on an overwhelming bipartisan vote. It was signed into law by the President. It is now the law of the land, and it established the key components of the budget for both 2012 and 2013. Here is the language from the Budget Control Act itself. It is very clear the Budget Control Act is intended to serve as the budget for 2012 and 2013. It states, and I quote, "For the purpose of enforcing the Congressional Budget Act of 1974 through April 15, 2012, the allocations, aggregates, and levels set in subsection B1 shall apply in the Senate in the same manner as for a concurrent resolution on the budget for fiscal year 2012. That same language is repeated for 2013. In many ways, the Budget Control Act was even more extensive than a traditional budget resolution. Number one, it has the force of law, unlike a budget resolution that never goes to the President. As all of you know, a budget resolution is purely a congressional document. The Budget Control Act is a law. Number two, it set discretionary caps for 10 years instead of the 1 year normally set in a budget resolution. Number three, it provided enforcement mechanisms, including 2 years of deeming resolutions, which allow budget points of order to be enforced. And fourth, it created a reconciliation-like supercommittee process to address both entitlements and tax reform. And it backed that process up with a $1.2 trillion sequester. So I think we can put to rest the claims that there is no budget in place or that we haven't enacted a budget. A budget was enacted for last year and this, or this year and next, I should say, in the Budget Control Act of last year. Last week, we received CBO's updated budget estimates, which allowed me to complete work on the budget deeming resolution for 2013. The filing of this deeming resolution was required under the Budget Control Act. I filed a similar resolution for 2012 back in September. And the Budget Control Act is crystal clear that the spending limits in the resolution should be set at the levels agreed to in the Budget Control Act. Again, here is the language taken directly from the law. It states, not later than April 15th, 2012, the chairman of the Committee on the Budget shall file for the Committee on Appropriations committee allocations for fiscal years 2012 and 2013, consistent with the discretionary spending limits set forth in this Act. It doesn't say at a level below the limits set forth in this Act. It says at a level consistent with the limits set forth in the Act. And let's remember what these limits mean. Under the Budget Control Act, spending caps that are put in place in the law, discretionary spending is cut by $900 billion below the CBO baseline over the next 10 years. And that is not including the sequester cuts. That is just the result of the Budget Control Act spending limits. Now, our House Republican friends now seem to be walking away from these levels, even though they agreed to them just 7 months ago. Let's look at what they themselves said just last summer. Here's what the House Budget Committee chairman said on the House floor on August 1st of last year, and I quote, "What the Budget Control Act has done is it has brought our two parties together. So I would just like to reflect for a moment that we have a bipartisan compromise here. That doesn't happen all that often around here, so I think that's worth noting. That's a good thing. And what are we doing? We are actually cutting spending while we do this. That's cultural. That's significant. That's a big step in the right direction. We are getting 2/3 of the cuts we wanted in our budget, and as far as I'm concerned, 66% in the right direction is a whole lot better than going in the wrong direction." So last summer, our Republican House colleagues were pleased to be getting 66% of what they wanted. On that basis, they made an agreement. They shook on it, and they passed it as law. Now they are threatening to walk away from their agreement. And it seems as though our House Republican colleagues are on their own, because at least so far, the Senate Republican leadership has agreed that we should keep to the spending limits that we agreed on just last year. Here's what Senate Minority Leader McConnell said on the Senate floor last month, and I quote, "We have negotiated the top line for the discretionary spending for this coming fiscal year. We already have that number. There is no good reason for this institution not to move forward with an appropriation process that avoids what we have done so frequently under both parties for years and years, either continuing resolutions or omnibus appropriations." The Senate Republican leader concluded, "I hope we can join together and do the basic work of government this year and do it in a timely fashion." I hope our House Republican colleagues are listening. Now, it is very clear we have a budget for this year and for next. That budget is in law, and I am, in pursuant to that law, filing the deeming resolution in the Senate today that provides the numbers that the appropriators need to proceed with their work for the year. BCA also sets the revenue levels and the mandatory spending levels for the year. Again, I hope our House Republican friends are listening. We still must come together on a longer-term plan to deal with the long-term debt threat. But the short-term budget is in place. It is the law. It was included in the Budget Control Act that they agreed to last summer. It provided for about $900 billion in discretionary spending cuts over the 10 years of that agreement. So the Senate is proceeding with its business. I will be filing the deeming resolution for 2013 today, and we will be moving forward with appropriations bills at the levels that everyone agreed to just last year. House Republicans, I hope, would do the same. If they fail to do so, they will once again threaten to shut down the government and needlessly imperil the economic recovery. I'm happy to answer questions that people might have.
What the Republicans say, and I think their point might be well taken, is, look, we have this massive sequester coming along that's going to cheaply hit discretionary programs. And what they're doing is they're cutting $19 billion instead of $78 billion under the sequester, and they're also going to have a reconciliation process that would take care of some of the other cuts. You don't have any plan, as far as I can tell, to deal with the sequester, or if you do, what is it?
Well, the first thing that has to be done, the first responsibility I have under the Budget Control Act, which is the law, is to file the deeming resolution that sets the budget for this next fiscal year. I'm doing that today. My legal counsel tells me that meets the requirement and the responsibility for the Budget Committee to file a budget for this year by April 1st. A longer-term plan, as I indicated, is what remains to be done. And that has to be done in some bipartisan way. And so I'm hopeful that as we go through this year, we'll find a way to do that. I will go to markup. I will provide an outline of what I think makes sense as a long-term plan, but the April 1st deadline has now been met. Yeah.
Well, how do you deal with things like, sequestration hitting the Defense Department? Lockheed Martin's CEO spoke last week about, a lot of the impacts of that happening. They may not, their suppliers might go, belly up in the meantime. And so how do you deal with that? And when do you propose dealing with the deficit issue, the larger deficit issue?
Well, what is provided for in the Budget Control Act, which everybody agreed to last year, sets the defense, non-defense firewall for this coming fiscal year. So that's been decided. The question is sequestration, which takes effect at the end of this year. That is what has to be addressed in some longer-term plan. And I will propose a longer-term plan at some point in the future. We're talking to colleagues about that now. But the first requirement I had, the first responsibility, was to meet the April 1st deadline set out in the Budget Control Act law. And I do that today.
So when do you think you might propose a longer-term plan? The conventional wisdom is something would happen in the lame duck, but folks have said there's not much time in a lame duck session to get that done.
That's why my own belief is, we're in a very unusual situation. And people are kind of trapped by what they know from the past. In the past, we have dealt with budget resolutions. That's not what Congress and the President did last year. Instead, we passed a Budget Control Act that set the budget for this year and next, and gave me the responsibility to lay out these numbers for the appropriators before April 15th. I've done that today. The appropriators can go forward with their work for this year. As I indicated in my statement, what still needs to be done is a longer-term plan. But we're no longer tied to the April 1st deadline. That deadline has been met by what we file here today. What we need is a longer-term plan. And that's a matter of judgment. When is it most likely that the two sides can come together? I've had many of my colleagues say it's most likely after the election. That may be. I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is we've met the requirements for a budget for this year. What is still needed is a longer-term plan. And when I make a judgment that we're in the best position to move forward on that, we will go to markup. Yeah.
Senator McConnell made those remarks on the floor before it became clear that the House Republicans were going to try to lower the number for fiscal 13. Has he said anything since about continuing to support
Not that I know of.
Does that mean that would be the key point, whether Senator McConnell will continue to support that number?
You know, I really don't know what the key element is here. What I do know is the Budget Control Act is law. What I do know is I was given the responsibility to file a budget by April 15th, and I've done that. And the appropriators can now go to work. So they are not limited, they are not restricted. That's the whole reason we have in the underlying Budget Control Act a requirement that I file by April 1st so that the appropriators can get started. The Budget Control Act provided the budget for this year, for this coming fiscal year, and for the current year that we're in. And I have now discharged that responsibility. The appropriators, I've met with the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. His legal counsel has advised him that this is what is required under the law, and he has all the authority he needs to proceed with the appropriations process for this year. And again, let me just emphasize, while we have now met the responsibility for a budget for not only this year, which was done last year in September, I did the deeming resolution then. What I'm doing today discharges the responsibility for the coming fiscal year. What we still need to do is to agree on a longer-term plan that deals with our deficits and debt. But that is no longer tied to April 1st, according to our legal counsel. So, you know, we're going to have to make a collective judgment. When is it that we have the best chance of actually reaching agreement? And many of my colleagues have said they don't believe that'll happen until after the election. My own belief is we can't wait till then to be working on a plan. And so for months, I have been working on a plan. I've got meetings with my colleagues. I've also been working, as you know, with the Group of 8 on a bipartisan plan. It is my hope that through these joint efforts that we will, at some time this year, and maybe we will have to wait till after the election, that we will be able to have a comprehensive plan agreed to that deals with our long-term challenges. Thank you. We've got a statement here that lays out what we are doing in the deeming resolution, the numbers that are assigned to each of the committees, and lays out the savings, nearly $900 billion over 10 years. Thank you.
And Senator Conrad saying in the beginning of that briefing that he will file the deeming resolution that sets the budget for 2013 today. Also today, Paul Ryan, the Budget Committee Chairman in the House, released their 2013 budget proposal. We have linked to that online, also have the news conference, both Paul Ryan's and Senator Conrad's news conference, online at cspan.org, and the White House reaction, which came out this morning as well. And they said, the White House statement said, in part, the House budget once again fails the test of balance, fairness, and shared responsibility. So you can read more on our website at cspan.org. The House is in the middle of a vote on the rule for a bill that deals with changing restrictions, lifting restrictions from a piece of land in Accomack County, Virginia. This has been a 15-minute vote. One more vote will follow this, and then they'll move on to general debate. The vote that follows is on an earlier bill, a bill that would establish a pilot program for expedited sale of federal real estate. That'll be a 5-minute vote.
Platts of Pennsylvania. Mr. Platts of Pennsylvania votes aye. Mr. Stearns. Mr. Stearns votes aye. Ms. Clark of New York. Ms. Clark of New York votes no. Mr. Richmond. Mr. Richmond votes no. Ms. Granger. Ms. Granger votes aye. Mr. Honda. Off aye, on no for Mr. Honda. Mr. Rothman. Mr. Rothman of New Jersey votes no.
On this vote, the yeas are 232 and the nays are 170. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Chaffetz, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 665 as amended, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 665, a bill to establish a pilot program for the expedited disposal of federal real property.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
The House approves the rule for a bill that would remove restrictions from a piece of land, federal land, in Accomack County, Virginia. It is an open rule, so we expect a couple of hours of debate, including consideration of a number of amendments. They're voting now on a bill debated earlier that establishes a pilot program for the expedited sale of federal real estate. Over in the Senate today, they continue work on a bill that allows small and medium-sized businesses to raise capital. It changes regulations on small businesses going public, and we expect a series of votes this afternoon, including a cloture vote on limiting debate to that bill. The Senate is in. You can follow Senate debate on C-SPAN 2. It's the Illinois primary today, 54 delegates at stake, and we'll have coverage for you this evening beginning at 7 o'clock with the candidate speeches, with the latest vote tallies, and of course your feedback on the phone, by Twitter, and by Facebook. All of that coming up beginning at 7 Eastern on the C-SPAN networks.
On this vote, the yeas are 402, the nays are 0. Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed.
Ms. Hirono. Ms. Hirono votes aye.
The yeas are 403, the nays are 0. Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The rules are suspended. The bill is passed. And without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Following communications.
The Honorable the Speaker, House of Representatives, sir, in order to rejoin the Committee on Energy and Commerce, I hereby resign my seat on the Science, Space and Technology Committee and the Natural Resources Committee effective today. Signed sincerely, John P. Sarbanes, Member of Congress. The Honorable the Speaker, House of Representatives, sir, please accept my resignation from the House Committee on Science, Space and Technology, effective immediately. I have been pleased to serve on the SST Committee during the 112th Congress. However, this resignation is necessitated by the recent vacancy on and my assignment to the House Committee on Education and the Workforce. Thank you. Best regards, Marcia L. Fudge, Member of Congress.
Without objection, the resignations are accepted. For what purpose does the gentleman from Washington seek?
Could I be recognized, Mr. Speaker?
For what purpose does the gentleman from Connecticut seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, by direction of the Democratic Caucus, I offer a privileged resolution and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Resolution 590, resolved that the following named members be and are hereby elected to the following standing committees of the House of Representatives. 1, Committee on Education and the Workforce.
Resolution be considered as read and printed in the record.
Is there any objection?
I thank the Speaker. I thank the gentleman for his consideration.
Without objection, the resolution is agreed to and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Washington seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the bill H.R. 2087.
Pursuant to objection, so ordered. Pursuant to House Resolution 587 and Rule 18, the Chair declares the House and the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for consideration of H.R. 2087. The Chair appoints the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Gardner, to preside over the Committee of the Whole.
The House is in Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for consideration of H.R. 2087, which the clerk will report by title.
a bill to remove restrictions from a parcel of land situated in the Atlantic District, Accomack County, Virginia.
Pursuant to the rule, the bill is considered read the first time. The gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hastings, and the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Grijalva, each will control 30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Washington.
Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman yields. See it to himself.
Mr. Chairman, I rise today in support of H.R. 2087, an authentic, no-cost jobs bill at removing government hurdles to economic development. This bill by the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Rigel, would allow Accomack County in Virginia to move forward with plans to develop, and Mr. Chairman, I want to say this very explicitly, to develop 32-acre parcel, not 32 million, not 320,000, not 320, 32-acre parcel of land adjacent to a NASA airstrip into a technology and research facility. Currently, the parcel has a restriction limiting use of the property to recreational purposes. This was a condition placed on the property when the county obtained the deed through the Federal Land Park to Program in 1976. Unfortunately, the park has been of little benefit to the community. Though the county has made diligent efforts, the park has fallen out of use and is currently overgrown and unmaintained. Now, Accomack County has found a better way to serve its citizens and determined that this legislation that can create hundreds and thousands of short-term and long-term jobs is the proper way to go. This property is already owned, Mr. Chairman, again, this property is already owned by Accomack County, not the federal government. Congress created the program that allowed the county to take title to this land. The purpose at that time was to help communities like this to exactly do what the bill says it should do. Congress has the authority to do this and should have the common sense to allow the county to do this. But there have been concerns raised that this bill would create a precedent leading to an avalanche of these types of requests. Let's be clear. This is simply one specific proposal dealing with one parcel of land totaling 32 acres. Not 32,000, not 320 million, just 32 acres. To put this into perspective, there are nearly 170,000 acres of land that have been transferred to state and local governments through the Federal Land to Park program. Nothing in this bill would affect those other acres. This bill is narrowly focused, involves an extremely small area of land, and frankly, it's unfortunate that this bill is even before us today. However, I will state that there are absolutely instances in which communities and states would be better off if the federal red tape on private land ownership was lifted, just as there were instances where reducing federal land ownership would be beneficial to local communities and states. Yet here we are to debate this specific bill, and it is simply not reasonable to argue that the sky is going to fall if this bill affecting, again, Mr. Chairman, 32 acres in Accomack County becomes law. When unemployment is still over 8%, Congress should be looking for every opportunity possible, no matter how big or how small, to create new American jobs. Gas prices are rapidly rising and families and businesses are struggling to make ends meet. Now more than ever, Congress should make it a priority to eliminate hurdles to economic development. And Mr. Chairman, that's exactly what this bill does. The gentleman from Virginia has given us an opportunity to immediately help a community with a plan to create jobs. We need to pass this legislation today, and I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 2087. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in opposition to the legislation and yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. The Federal Lands to Parks program is one of the most successful parts of our National Park Service. For those parts of the country that are not blessed with the Grand Canyon or the Sonoran Desert, this program provides local government with excess federal lands at no cost provided the land is used for recreational purposes. Over the years, nearly 1,500 parcels of land have gone to local governments for free, but with deeds that ensure they are used for the public good. The land isn't foisted upon these local governments. Instead, local governments actively work with the Park Service to obtain land for historical, natural, or recreational interest. I should note, for clarification, as we go forward with this debate, that this is not county land. This is federal land. The county is allowed to control this land as long as it is used for the recreational purposes in the agreement. If this was county land, we would not be here. The county can't sell the land. The county can't lease the land. The county can't rent the land. The county does not own the land. This bill gives federal land away for free. Examples of successful projects are 195 acres that went to the city of Ogden in Utah for the Ogden National Center, Rodeo, and Fairgrounds. 97 acres that went to Brigham City, Utah for the Brigham Intermountain Golf Course. 130 acres to the city of Walla Walla, Washington for the Fort Walla Walla Park. 307 acres to the city of Aurora, Colorado for the Aurora Reservoir Park. 2.7 acres to the town of Hot Sulphur Springs, Colorado. All of these entities took the same deal as Accomack County in 1976. They expressed their desire for the land, advocated for the transfer, and freely agreed to a deed that ensured that the land would be used for recreation or revert back to federal ownership. Over the years, as local governments have fought development pressures and budget shortfalls, the Park Service and the General Services Administration have developed a land exchange process to enable some flexibility for these communities. They can enter into land exchange that requires the replacement land be of equal recreation and fair market value. Alternative, the county can return the land to the federal government and purchase it for fair market value through the GSA process. The sponsor of the legislation and the county involved have rejected both of these options. Instead, the county is actively promoting a development plan that includes these lands in question while waiting for an act of Congress to clear the deed. Enactment of this bill creates an unacceptable and dangerous precedent for every other project out there. The reason the federal land management agencies refuse to give away federal land is because Congress requires the agencies to seek legislation to sell or transfer federal land. And you know why? Because a pesky little document called the United States Constitution requires Congress to make laws with respect to the deposition of federal land. It encourages local governments to This would encourage local governments to run to Congress and cash in on a gift the federal government has shared with local communities. This legislation should be rejected. I urge a no vote on this bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Washington.
Mr. Chairman, I am very pleased to yield 5 minutes to the author of this legislation, the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Ridgell.
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank my friend, the gentleman from Washington. I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to come before this body today and make the case that this is wonderful and strong legislation that should be moved forward for one purpose, job creation in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and specifically in Accomack County, and indeed is a jobs bill. It reflects common sense. It reflects common ground. It came out of committee with bipartisan support. And I think most importantly, Mr. Speaker, it reflects the collective wisdom and the will of the hardworking taxpayers of Accomack County. And here's why, Mr. Speaker, that this bill, if enacted and passed, will create jobs. You see, the folks of Accomack County have not asked the federal government for something. They've simply asked the federal government to get out of the way. So the greatest job-producing engine the world's ever known, the American entrepreneurs in Accomack County, can get to work in a very responsible way of developing this property that is immediately adjacent to the Wallops NASA facility there. It's, I think, a clear contrast of two basic philosophical approaches to job creation. One looks to this institution and to Washington to see this institution as the primary driver of job creation. As a lifetime entrepreneur, Mr. Speaker, I reject that approach and instead have adopted all of my life and believe we need to bring to this body the mindset that the best thing to do to get our economy going again is to eliminate the hurdles. This is a very practical hurdle that is holding back job creation in a county that desperately needs jobs. 16%, Mr. Speaker, of the hardworking families in Accomack County live under the poverty line. About 90% of the property that's in Accomack County is agricultural. It is, without a doubt, a poor county. And this bill simply removes a deed restriction. My friend behind me just a few moments ago, he said, "Now, do you have a picture of this?" I said, "Well, we didn't bring it down to the floor, but we could have. It's just overgrown. There's nothing there. There's a dilapidated dugout facility, and that's it. There's no parking. There's no infrastructure. There's no buildings." Accomack County has a plan. You know, Americans are resourceful. They'll figure their way out of this, in spite of Washington. The Board of Supervisors has a wonderful plan for the Wallops Research Park, but it only works, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, rather. It only works, Mr. Chairman, if this deed restriction is removed. 32 acres. Great potential for the folks in Accomack County. I want to close, Mr. Chairman, by recounting a conversation that I had just a few moments ago. And I actually called the person back, and I wanted to make sure I had her permission to share this story. I trust she's listening now. Mr. Chairman, her name is Kathy Wirt. Her husband is a builder in Accomack County, and their business has been hurting because of the economy. And Jim's a friend of mine, and I know his business is hurting. Kathy used to work for him in accounting, and she's been out looking for work because the construction business is so depressed, and we all know that. And I called Kathy. I said, "Kathy, I'd like to reference you here. Do I have your permission?" And she said, "Yes, you do." This is just one family. There are hundreds and hundreds of families in Accomack County. And I wish my colleagues on the other side who are opposing this bill could look them in the eye and explain to them why we can't remove this deed restriction. It's a classic example, Mr. Chairman, of a paternalistic federal government, an oppressive federal government holding back job creation. We're all American taxpayers. This idea of transferring it from one to another, $800,000 or more from a poor county, this is what's wrong with America, Mr. Chairman. And even though this is a relatively small bill in the big scheme of things, 32 acres, when the federal government owns almost one-third of all the land in the United States, that too is a problem. Maybe we'll get around to that one day, Mr. Chairman. But until then, we're just talking about 32 acres. So I'd ask my colleagues on the other side to reconsider, and I would ask them to vote in favor of this, and let's get some hard-working folks in Accomack County back to work. I thank the gentleman for yielding.
The gentleman yields back.
Do you want now?
The gentleman from Arizona.
Yes. Let me yield 5 minutes to the gentlelady from California.
The gentlelady from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, it's inconceivable to me that with all the challenges we have that are facing our nation, this body is taking up legislation today having to do with a 32-acre parcel of land in Virginia. Is this really the best we can do? At a moment when our economy is still underperforming, at a moment when we're still sending brave Americans to die in an immoral war that's gone on for nearly as long as my grandson Teddy has been alive? We still have more than 8% unemployment in this country. We still have families and entire communities wondering what happened to the American dream. We have people losing their home through no fault of their own. We have people wondering how they're going to pay next month's bills, never mind the daunting cost of sending their child to college. We have families wondering why the very health care reforms they needed are about to go on trial at the U.S. Supreme Court. We also have people who more than ever are depending on a safety net, programs like Medicare and Medicaid, which have a big, fat target on their backs, put in by the Republican budget plan that was just unveiled today. A good start would be to pass the Senate transportation bill to rebuild our infrastructure and put our people back to work. Then how about getting down to the business of ending the war in Afghanistan, which is killing our people, undermining our national security, and diverting the money that we need to meet human needs right here at home. I can't believe that the American people want us to debate a bill about 32 acres of land in Virginia. Not when we still have thousands of troops in harm's way fighting a war that is doing nothing to keep America safe and nothing to protect our vital interests. We have important issues to debate, Mr. Chairman, big problems to tackle, Americans who need our help, and an overseas conflict that must end. This is a moment of great urgency. Why isn't the majority acting like it? I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from Washington is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I'm very pleased to yield 2 minutes to the co-sponsor of this legislation, a gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Harris.
The gentleman is recognized. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the chairman of the committee for giving me the opportunity to speak, and the gentleman from Virginia for giving me the opportunity to co-sponsor this bill. The gentleman from Virginia, of course, is from the southern end of the Delmarva Peninsula. I represent the middle part adjoining Accomack County. You know, we heard a lot during the State of the Union address. The President stood just a few feet in front of you, Mr. Chairman, and talked about shovel-ready jobs and infrastructure. Mr. Chairman, there's shovel-ready jobs ready to go. This land adjoins Wallops Island, the launch facility, which now is one of the places that launch private and public vehicles into space. It doesn't get any better than that. For a poor county in Accomack, and the chairman of the committee mentioned an 8% unemployment rate. Well, Mr. Chairman, I wish that Worcester County, where half the employees in this industrial park will work, had an 8% rate. The unemployment rate was 15.6% in Worcester County. Now, the President stood there and said, we got to get Americans back to work. Mr. Chairman, we need to cut through the red tape, just like the President said, and get projects like this going. There's no loss of recreation area. Accomack County has offered to, in fact, find another 32 acres to have the recreation area. So let's not pretend there's a loss. Let's not pretend this land doesn't belong to Accomack County. They hold the title. Like a poor stepchild, they are coming to Uncle Sam, begging for permission to create some jobs in Accomack County. And like the mean old uncle, Uncle Sam has said, no. There's red tape involved. We have a bureaucracy. You have to fill in all the blanks. You have to do this. Mr. Chairman, the 15.6% of Worcester County who are unemployed don't have the time for this red tape. We must do it. The gentleman called this unacceptable and dangerous. Mr. Chairman, you're right. 15.6% unemployment is unacceptable. It's dangerous to our economy. The gentlelady said it's inconceivable that we're here. I couldn't have said it better. How could our federal bureaucracy have failed so poorly? We need to pass this bill, Mr. Chairman. I yield back my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to yield 4 minutes to my colleague, Mr. Ellison.
The gentleman from Minnesota is recognized for 4 minutes.
And I'd like to thank the gentleman for yielding the time. You know, I have no doubt that these issues are important to the people involved. I have no doubt that the people who support and oppose this bill care deeply about it. It's a local issue, and I come from a locality and therefore understand. But the fact of the matter is that our country is in some seriously grievous harm because we do have an exorbitant unemployment rate. It's been going down. We've been adding private sector jobs, but there's still too many people unemployed. And yet, the majority has not taken the time on the floor today to deal with how we're going to get all Americans back. They're taking time to figure out how they can do an earmark after they've said there's no earmarks. This is remarkable. I'm actually not against earmarks, Mr. Chairman. I'm for them. I think they're a good thing. But you know what? The majority has said no earmarks. And yet, this is like the second time in the last couple of weeks we see them floating their earmarks right on through. You know, H.R. 2087 would allow a county in a particular representative's district to acquire full ownership of a little less than 32 acres of federal land worth more than $800,000 for free. Now, that's an earmark. Yet, the rest of us can't get them, but if you are among the favored few, you can. That's wrong. That's unfair. That's unjust. And it's particularly unjust given the grievous problems that we're facing as a nation. We should be voting on a real jobs bill to create good jobs all across America. But apparently that's not what we're going to be doing with our time today. We're going to be talking about a narrow provincial interest in trying to give away federal land for free for a particular interest in a particular locality. We should be talking about how we're going to save and protect Medicare Guarantee for All Americans, which is in threat given the Ryan budget. But no, we're talking about a narrow, small-town entrance, which I think is important, but which the majority in their infinite wisdom has said we can't do because that's an earmark. You know, the GOP has wasted the last 441 days that they've been in charge and failed to produce a single jobs bill. In fact, they're trying to cut jobs. The transportation bill would lead to a loss of over 500,000 jobs. Now, you know, I definitely sympathize with the folks who are out of work in the member's district, in the county where this earmark is going to be taking place. I do. I'm very concerned about the unemployed. That's why I wish we had a real jobs bill, as opposed to these giveaways of federal land, and we really don't know who's going to end up benefiting at the end of the day. Bottom line is, we have real problems in America. We got transportation needs, we got environmental needs, we got health care needs, we got real debates to take care of. But if we're going to be debating those things, we got to be on the floor taking the time up to do those things, not dealing with disguised earmarks for certain people because they happen to, I don't know why they get privileged treatment over people like me who don't get to offer earmarks anymore. I'll say this, Mr. Speaker. At the end of the day, America is a country that needs the attention of this Congress so that everybody can get a job that pays well across this country, and we're not doing that. We're failing. What we're doing is we're allowing one county and one member's district to acquire full ownership of a valuable piece of land for free, and that's wrong.
The gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Washington.
I reserve my time.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Arizona.